I've always kind of had an interest in food and restaurants. And I was kind of at a point in my career where I was thinking about going back to school, maybe doing an MBA with, business, but like a focus on the art world. But I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to stay in art. So it seemed a little silly to go back and get my MBA in something that I might not necessarily use.
From the cubicle to the lab, the studio to the war room, climbing the corporate ladder, or joining a scrappy startup, experience a day in the life of the jobs you want. This is the Experience a Diddle podcast.
We interview professionals, entrepreneurs, and recent grads to inspire you to gain experience beyond the classroom and launch a career of your own.
We're your hosts, Krista Bowe
and Matt Poe. Welcome to the Experience episode in the Cater to Your Career series with ARC Restaurants Catering Manager Emma Weinstein. We experienced a day in the life in the A Diddle episode, out now by the way, and we're going to run through Emma's resume leading up to her current role today. Let's learn how she got her foot in the door in the industry and how you can too. Let's jump right in. Not too long ago, you're right out of high school. You jump into an art history program at Skidmore College, right? Why'd you choose art history?
I studied abroad in Rome my junior year of high school and took some really amazing art history classes. And it was just really incredible to study something. And it was very old-fashioned. Like, we actually had a slide projector and we were looking at slides. Yeah. So it was very authentic. It was mainly Renaissance and Baroque Italian art based in Rome. So we would go and actually see the work in person. So going into college my freshman year, I had an idea that I wanted to major in art history, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I actually didn't take any art history classes my freshman fall. I think I took my first one the spring of my freshman year and just really liked it.
Do you remember what your career plans were at that time? Did you have any? Did you want to be an artist? Did you want to just be an art enthusiast?
Definitely not like a studio artist. I don't have those skills. But no, I was thinking about maybe doing something with commercial art galleries, maybe doing something with museums, but I wasn't, 100% sure. But one of the reasons I chose Skidmore is because having the liberal arts background, you're able to take a bunch of different classes. So like I took oceanography as my math requirement, which was amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
So so I liked kind of that flexibility and the ability to explore a bunch of different kind of disciplines in, a great setting.
So we know she was very involved in extracurricular activities, and participating in those helped sharpen her skills and add experience to her resume. One of those experiences was writing for hercampus.com.
So I mainly wrote restaurant reviews, and then I know I did like one gallery review. Skidmore has a really amazing teaching museum called the Tang. So I did a review of this contemporary African exhibition that they had the spring of, I think, my sophomore year. But mainly like restaurant like reviews or food related posts. And I thought it'd be, something that was kind of fun to do and not too serious. And I like that you kind of had the freedom to pitch your own articles.
Writing and interviewing skills are great skills to add to your resume. If you're looking to kill two birds with one stone, you can sign up at experienceadiddle.com/students to write articles about a day in the life of the jobs and professions you want to pursue post-graduation. A great way to get your foot in the door to your first or next internship, sharpen your writing skills, and practice networking. Had to plug. Sorry, not sorry, but please continue, Emma. What were you saying? I believe we were talking about how your undergrad activities and studies helped you in your career today.
The amount of papers I wrote in college definitely had an impact, and just like the research skills. My junior and senior years of college, I was writing probably 5 papers a week. So between balancing, being on the writing team, I also had my own personal horse at Skidmore. So managing his care and making sure that I wasn't neglecting him, going to, riding 6 days a week. I did the polo team my freshman year briefly too, and just kind of learning time management with all the things that I was involved in. I would say that had a much bigger impact on, shaping my career and, managing all the different things I was doing and wanted to be doing at the same time.
What was the horse's name?
His name is Ortiz.
Is he still with us today?
He is, yes.
Do you still ride him and stuff?
I do. I try and go riding every weekend. He lives in Pawling, New York, so it's about an hour and a half north of the city.
Tell Ortiz we said hi.
I will.
The next thing for you, you were a development intern at Park Avenue Armory. Mm-hmm. What were you doing there? What is a development intern?
Yeah, so that was when I was still kind of trying to figure out what realm of the art world I wanted to work in. So when I was there, The main exhibition that they had on was this Christian Boltanski exhibition. So I was helping in the marketing department. They were collecting surveys on the Christian Boltanski exhibition. And because they were paper surveys, I would literally manually input them into SurveyMonkey. So I spent a lot of time doing that. Filing work, kind of like canvassed the city and thought about different companies and organizations they could maybe reach out to. They have a president's circle, so I helped plan a carnival for them. Just did some kind of like general admin things that people needed.
All right. So then in 2011, you traveled abroad to the University of Sydney in Australia for a study abroad program. Can you talk about that a little bit? What your experience was like there?
Yeah, so Sydney is amazing. It's really beautiful. They also have, I think, a really nice work-life culture balance. So in Australia, there's, so many people that have fantastic jobs and they haven't gone to college, which is, definitely different. Like in the U.S., it's more kind of going towards that where, you don't necessarily need a master's degree or finish college to be super successful. But what I liked about Sydney is they don't have this mentality where you have to do all these internships in high school to, get this perfect job. And then you have to do all this stuff in college to then get into this perfect master's program. So it's just kind of a different philosophy. And people, in their early 20s often will just like quit their jobs and travel until they only have money for a plane ticket back to Australia, which is not something you see happening in the U.S. that often. So that was kind of cool to be in that environment. But just in terms of academically, Skidmore is really small. It's 2,300 students in total.
Oh, wow.
University of Sydney is like 70,000 students, and it has multiple campuses. Also, the majority of your classes are recorded, so you can show up to a class where there's supposed to be 200 people, and there will be maybe 5.
Oh, wow.
Because people are working full-time, and then they kind of watch their, classes as an on-need basis. The other main difference is you're normally graded on maybe one paper or one test or one paper and one test. So accountability, you don't have to show up. So it's very different. So it's kind of like a sink or swim mentality. Either you're going to be accountable, you're going to, hand in your one paper and do really well on that, but no one's really kind of hold your hand and make sure that you show up to class. And
so. Which do you prefer?
I liked the experience of both. When I was applying to colleges, I really only looked at smaller schools. So I liked that I, got to have this experience of going to a really big university and seeing what it was like. But it definitely made me appreciate all my professors and classes at Skidmore who, knew my name and knew if I wasn't going to show up, and just kind of the smaller, more intimate learning environment.
While attending the University of Sydney, she took the opportunity to take classes that weren't necessarily offered at Skidmore, but she was interested in.
So I took a contemporary Aboriginal art class and I took an Indigenous studies class. I also didn't really know that much about the history of the Aboriginal people in Australia. So while there, I really wanted to kind of seize the opportunity to learn more about them from, an art perspective, which matched with my art history background, and just kind of like a historical perspective as well.
You were working at an art gallery as an intern there. What was that like?
It was cool. It was an art gallery on the second floor, and then it was a restaurant on the ground floor.
Oh, wow, that's
yeah.
Great mix.
Sounds full circle for you.
Yeah. So they had these cool, artist dinners where sometimes like the food would be paired to match a certain theme in the art. It was really small, so I was able to do a lot of different things. On my first day, I had to call one of the artists, the woman who owned the gallery represented it, and do an interview with him, which I felt totally unprepared for. And she was like, "No, you'll be fine. Just do it." So it was kind of, threw me in, but it was a really great experience. And because it was so small, I got to do like very cool things. So I wasn't just doing kind of menial, admin work. I actually got to do some really exciting projects. And, if I had suggestions, they were taken very seriously.
All right. So this next thing, it seems like a very juicy story. Tell us about what Strange Fruits is.
Oh, I haven't thought about it in ages. Strange Fruits was my junior year of college. I was taking this art history class, and at the time that we were working in conjunction with the Tang, the Teaching Museum. So one of the awesome things about the Tang at Skidmore is it's very involved in classes. It's not just an art focus. It's really an interdisciplinary teaching museum. So at the time that I was taking this class, they were offered a donation of photographs from the N.J. Jaffe Foundation. So he was an amazing black and white photographer, and he passed away, and his daughter was willing to give some of his photographs as a donation to the Tang. So as part of this class that I was in, we each got to pick a photograph that we wanted to represent and basically petition why it should be added to the collection. And being an interdisciplinary teaching museum, one of the really critical things was to kind of show it from all angles and how it wouldn't, only apply to the art history department. My partner for the project, we kind of had this one photograph called Strange Fruits, which is a black and white photograph of trees, and then there's sort of different things hanging from the trees. And there's been a dance performance called Strange Fruits. There's a song called Strange Fruit. He was from the South. It brought up notions of lynching and kind of the civil rights movement. So there was a lot to kind of discuss about the photograph. And then then at the end, we presented to N.J. Jaffe's daughter and to the head of the art history department, and then the main curator for the Tang, and then the assistant curator. And our photograph, I think, was one of 5 that was chosen.
Emma graduated Skidmore in 2013 and took some time off before she jumped right into the job hunt.
I had no jobs lined up. My plan for the summer was to just horse show competitively for a couple months and then figure out it in the fall. And that's what I did. So I had a really, relaxing summer, just going around to some different horse shows and competing. I lived up at the farm where my horse lives in Pauling. And then honestly, I didn't think about jobs until September when I came back to the city.
Do you like that decision that you made, taking the summer off? Was that a good decision?
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, I think depending on what your career path is, but I think it's nice to take a break. You've just spent 4 years working really hard, doing all these different things. I also think if you're not 100% sure what to do, maybe getting an internship or just taking, a couple moments to breathe and figure it out and just, be really excited about graduating and not have that kind of be tarnished by freaking out about what you're going to do.
So your first gig after graduation was a sales and marketing internship, right? Mm-hmm. At the Dillon Gallery. What was that like? How'd you get that job?
That job I also got through a family connection. But yeah, it was really great. I learned a lot. It was it still is a small gallery that's based in New York. So when it first started, it was really a focus on Japanese Nihonga art, which is using mineral-based pigments and precious metals, so silver and gold leaf. But when I joined, they still had a lot of Nihonga artists that they represented, but they were moving more into contemporary photography and contemporary sculpture. And because it was such a small team, I was able to do a bunch of different things. When I was an intern, I went to Art Basel and helped them there, which is not an opportunity most interns are able to get.
Not.
Yeah. So I would say, sometimes if you're looking at internships and there's, the really big kind of brand name company to work for, and then there's a smaller company, it's definitely worth thinking about, what your opportunities and experiences will be at a really large place versus a small place, because sometimes at the small places you get to do a lot more just because of the smaller team and you have, closer connections with your coworkers, and you get to, see and experience more things.
After that internship, she moved to another sales and marketing internship opportunity at another gallery, David Zwirner.
David Zwirner is a really big gallery, so I wanted to kind of experience what it would be like to be at a larger art institution. So I felt like that would be kind of a really good experience to have that. So I was mainly on sales, assisting the different sales representatives. So all of the main partners have assistants, and then I was kind of assisting those assistants. I would help put together sales packets for clients, so print out high resolution images. I would label them. I was the security guard for one exhibition, which was very nerve-wracking.
Okay. You're very intimidating. All right. So after that experience, you went back to Dillon Gallery, right?
Yes.
As an assistant director. Now, was this a full-time gig at this point? What were your responsibilities? How did it change from being an intern?
A sort of similar to being an intern, honestly, but just more responsibilities. So being the assistant director, I was actually able to sell things. I, would come up with marketing initiatives. I put on a fashion show. We had a charity fashion show, so I kind of organized that.
Okay, so now the fun really begins, right, in your career. You started a restaurant with some family members.
I did, with my dad and my brother.
The Chuck and Blade. And that was in 2015.
Yes.
First of all, tell us about the restaurant as a whole. What is it?
So it's a contemporary steakhouse with a raw bar concept. It's on 8th Avenue between 19th and 20th. So it's really close to the Joyce Theater for those people familiar with Chelsea. And yeah, so I was at the art gallery. I've always kind of had an interest in food and restaurants. My dad's in the restaurant industry. My brother has worked in the restaurant industry in different capacities. So my dad and my brother were working on this restaurant project. And I was kind of at a point in my career where I was thinking about going back to school, maybe doing an MBA with, business, but like a focus on the art world. But I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to stay in art. So it seemed a little silly to go back and get my MBA in something that I might not necessarily use. And then they let me join the project. So that was pretty perfect timing for me. And it was really a whole family affair because my mom's an interior designer and she designed the restaurant. So we were all very involved in it. And it was literally everything from kind of this is how you negotiate a lease, which my dad had experience doing. This is how you get a liquor license. This is, how you make sure you have an ADA accessible kitchen so you can offer people in a wheelchair a kitchen position. What silverware are we going to use? What glassware are we going to use? Who are we going to buy our meat from? So it was very all-encompassing. So I kind of felt like or at least for me, I felt like I was, hitting the ground running because I had no experience. Like I love going out to eat and do that pretty often, but I've never thought about where am I going to source classes from.
So this whole experience led to your decision to go back to school at the Institute of Culinary Education, right? Can you tell us about how you formed that decision to go back to school and why you chose that?
Yeah. So I think, having to learn kind of everything on the go was definitely a really valuable experience. It was real world experience, which I definitely really valued. But at the same time, I kind of felt like if I had a more formal education in restaurant management, that would have really helped, or even had more restaurant experience. So that's why I decided to go to ICE originally just for the Culinary Management program. But then I added the Culinary Arts track too because I really wanted kind of that behind the scenes kitchen knowledge. And I felt like that would just make me a more well-rounded individual working within the restaurant industry. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I kind of felt like the combination of the two would really help me in the long run.
Can you speak a little bit more detail about what the two, like the difference in the classes and the style of education between the two programs you were in?
So Culinary Management is sort of, an abbreviated business school for the restaurant industry. So there were people in my class that either wanted to open different types of food concepts. So they wanted to open, one wanted to open like a high-end French restaurant in Brooklyn. One guy already owned a liquor store in Harlem, so he just kind of wanted better advice on how to better operate his business. I was definitely one of the younger people in the class. There were a couple people that were younger than I was at the time. So they had gone, straight out of high school and were doing this instead of going to a more traditional college experience. So that was about, writing a business plan, health code violations. I had to do, 2 different food safety certifications. I did, one of them I already had from opening the restaurant because that was something I had to do. 2 different ways to correctly serve liquor, how to open wine correctly, how to talk about different food, how to do menu writing, restaurant design, how to read floor plans. Like it was a bunch of things, which was really great. Coming up with a concept. And then the culinary arts was professional cooking. So it was literally everything from how to do like a small diced potato and how to, cook pasta and make pasta and how to make sushi and do a bunch of different things.
To graduate from ICE, she needed experience cooking in a professional kitchen, so her next move was an externship with Maya Lino in New York.
So basically what you go and do is you go to the kitchen and, they tell you when to show up and you have to bring your own knives. I mean, if you're cooking in a kitchen anyway, that's something like my friends were surprised with. They don't give you equipment. You have to bring your own equipment. You have to bring your own tongs, your own knives. Like they give you towels. That's it.
Very hardcore.
Yeah.
At least they give you towels.
Yeah. Limited towels. You have to stash and hide your towels because otherwise people will take them. Towels are a hot commodity in the kitchen. But yes, you go and then they'll normally, give you a recipe to make or something. And then normally you don't get put on the line or do anything. When I did my trail at the Dutch, they did put me on the line during brunch, which was rare. And that was really intense. But yeah, so you do that and then you normally get to observe for the rest of service. And most of the restaurants let you taste a variety of things, which is awesome.
Cool.
So you leave pretty full. And then they either offer you a position or they don't. So I think I did 5 different trails before settling on Maya Lino.
So this was a graduation requirement. Mm-hmm. Was your motive or your goal at this point to work at a restaurant, or did you want to just take the experience, get this graduation requirement done, and then go off and do your own thing? Or
I never expected to work as a chef professionally.
Gotcha.
So it was really just, I was actually really dreading it. I was like, I just need to get this done. I specifically chose Maya Lino because they're with the Union Square Hospitality Group, which owns a lot of restaurants. Danny Meyer, the founder, he's the one that started Shake Shack. Now Shake Shack's a publicly traded company. But yeah, so USHG, it's like a really well-known restaurant group. So I knew that they had other positions that weren't cooking positions. So I thought this would be a good way to kind of get in on the ground floor into that company.
Gotcha.
So I was between that and Dynex, which is Daniel Boulud's group, for similar reasons, because I knew that they had this larger infrastructure supporting all the restaurants.
Gotcha.
So after my externship, they offered me a job full-time, which I also wasn't expecting. And I didn't really know what else I wanted to do at the time immediately. So I accepted the position.
Gotcha.
And what was that position?
So originally I was on the salumi station, which was basically what I was doing as an intern anyway. So maialino means little pig in Italian. So it's a very pork and red meat heavy restaurant. It's also really well known for the pastas. They have fantastic pastas. And it's in the Gramercy Park Hotel. So I was doing like a lot of charcuterie plates and cheese plates, making really big like meat and cheese sandwiches. Then I was promoted to cold garde manger. So that was doing like different things for breakfast. So like fruit and granola bowls and basically the equivalent of a variety of bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches, salads, soups, like some octopus dishes, a bar menu. So they have a fried pig face on the menu. So I had made that a couple times. Yeah, so a variety of things.
You were only there for 5 months,
Yeah.
correct? What made you leave?
I just didn't like it enough to stay. I so admire anyone that is cooking professionally. It is so hard, just, physically and emotionally. It's like a very, very tough environment to be in. The hours are really long. You're standing for 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
You may or not be eating lunch. You're in a hot environment. There's like lots of hazards. You can burn yourself. You can cut yourself, depending on which kitchen, you hear all these horror stories now about like what's been happening in the restaurant industry to, especially female employees. So I feel very lucky that I didn't experience any of that. But it's just like a very brutal environment. So I think if you're going to be an executive chef or your dream is to be an owner-operator, you really have to kind of have that passion and drive and love of cooking, which I just didn't have.
Next move was ARC Restaurants. How did that opportunity come about?
So I started looking at roles in bigger restaurant groups because I kind of really needed that infrastructure. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do or what department I wanted to be in. So that was another referral from a family friend. So I was able to get that position and start kind of as an internship in the events department, which is something that I thought would be interesting, but I didn't really know entirely what it entailed. And then it just kind of ended up going really well, and I was given more and more responsibility and brought on full time. Been there slightly over a year now.
That wraps up the experience episode in the Cater to Your Career series with ARC Restaurants Catering Manager Emma Weinstein.
Do you need experience? Are you looking for an internship? Well, you can join the team and interview anyone in any industry by becoming an Experience a Diddle student interviewer. Regardless of your major or amount of experience, this is the perfect stepping stone into any internship or career. Apply to the Adiddle Army at experienceadiddle.com/students. That's experienceaditl.com/students. Thanks for listening. To find the show notes with all relevant links and photos for this series, head over to experienceadiddle.com. That's experienceaditl.com.
If you learned something in this episode, please take some time to help our mission by leaving a positive rating and review of the show. Each week, we bring you a new interview series with guests from different jobs and industries. In every series, we live a specific day in the life, hour by hour, experience the career journey, and have a discussion about what we learned. So, don't forget to subscribe.